Hey, party people. Welcome to another Runway review meets How Do You Make That? Loewe edition. Okay, we're going to be talking about Loewe's Spring 2024 collection, and we're going to add another layer to the How Do You Make That aspect of this video. We're going to talk about how do you make that for people who use wheelchairs. Okay, so just quick side note, I did look up online what is the correct vernacular to use, and I read that it is people who use wheelchairs or wheelchair users. And if that is not it, let me know in the comments. I do try to be respectful in saying the right terms on my channel. Let me know. Let me know. Okay. But back to Loewe, let's take an overall look at their Spring 2024 collection first of all. Okay, Loewe, I have been I have loved and kept track of Loewe ever since I learned about their elephant bag 100 years ago. I love it so much. They had this orange one that had a little punk version with a chain and some piercings that I still really want. And I love a brand that does great clothes, but also has a sense of humor. And Loewe fits into that category. And I think Tom Brown also fits into this category. Great clothes, an avant-garde direction, but also plenty of wearable clothes with a sense of humor. I do not put Balenciaga in this category because it's not that they have a sense of humor, and it's not even that they're nonsense. They just have no sense. I want you to take an overall look at the whole collection before we get into any of the details, because a lot of the time I talk about color direction being one of the earliest things in collection development that you should work on, because color kind of pervades the whole collection and kind of gives off a lot. It gives off how wearable something is. It gives off the mood, the vibe, what direction you're going in, all these things. And take a look. What color scheme are you seeing? Okay. Me, I am seeing two triadic color schemes. We are seeing a red, yellow, blue, the primaries, red, blue, lots of, denim, blue, even he's wearing blue, yellow, these more toned down yellows, beiges, and then we have another set, the secondaries, orange, green, and purple, orange, green, and purple, purple, yellow, and blue, blue, green. Okay, so two triadic color stories coming together. And, that's the thing, is like a lot of the time, one singular color story isn't enough for the whole brand, especially if you're a bigger brand, you're global, you're doing big collections. And so combining the two really works well together. Loewe started in Spain, in Madrid, a group of Spanish leatherworkers. So Loewe's roots are from 1846. They are rooted in leather craftsmanship, which is why they always emphasize bags. They are one of those brands that come from a history of leather, and they are from Madrid. And I read somewhere that Anderson was inspired by matadors to create this extremely high-waisted pant. Okay, very, very high-waisted pant, in a completely different way. Like, matador outfits are very different from this silhouette and this look. But that's the thing, is like, I tend to tell students to not use other clothing as inspiration examples, because often they take it too literally. Like if I said to take matador pants and let that inspire you to make modern pants, oftentimes I see students taking things too literally. There's tons of gold beading, but on a more modern silhouette, or they take that super high-waisted, super tight silhouette and remove the beading, whereas this, you take the high-waisted and the silhouette is different, the fabrics are modern, it's really different, okay? So until you can figure out a way to make sure that your references aren't too direct, too literal, I encourage students to stay away from clothing references as inspiration. This is done really well here. If someone said they were, if nobody said that they were inspired by matadors, I could have just kind of, and honestly, it could be something that he made up on the fly for marketing purposes, because that happens too. It just does. It's like, oh, we have to find something catchy to say, something fun and memorable to say in an interview about our collection. So we're going to tell them that the super high-waisted is based off of matadors. And we're originally a Spanish house, so let's go with that. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it could have happened, because you just never know with marketing and PR and all of that, right? But back to the design. The thing that separates great designers from the riffraff is vision, okay? A lot of lesser designers, it doesn't take a ton to make some pretty dresses. To have vision going forward and to be the trendsetter, that takes vision. And Anderson's vision for a new silhouette is clear here. He is moving away from some of the big, oversized, baggy, boxy looks from previous season. He's like touching into that because he knows that's where people still are mentally. But he is moving forward with this silhouette, okay? A lot of fashion runs on the golden ratio. It's tried and true. Most people find it flattering for their bodies, and so a lot of designers run with that. This is definitely too elongated to be the golden ratio. It is more like 75-25, 70-30 if you're stretching it. Even in a monochromatic look like this, you're still seeing the waist emphasis high up because the rest of the trouser is not baggy, but it is loose. It's like a full wide leg trouser and not like a skinny little pant. We've got the elongated proportion. We've got the flat shoe. We have got the great bags. There's always great bags, okay? The very high pockets, not just on the pants, but on the jackets as well, to really emphasize that proportion of the super high waist. It's even here. Like these coats, there's several in this silhouette in this collection. There is the standard pocket placement, but also one up here. I love it when a handbag can have a chain and it doesn't look like Chanel. It successfully does not look remotely like any Chanel bag, but it has a gold chain that stands entirely on its own. There are several pieces here where it looks like there's a knitting needle stabbed right through, and to me, I think that is also a Matador reference, especially since you see so many of these knitting needles stabbed across a leather piece. And you might be thinking, oh my God, Zoe, who is going to wear pants that high? That looks ridiculous. And for those of you who are thinking that, I totally get you, but let me tell you a little fashion history story. Back in 1994, Alexander McQueen introduced us to his bombster pant, something he had been developing throughout the early 90s. The waistline of those pants were so low that I'm not going to post them here on YouTube because I might get my video taken down or demonetized, but let me assure you that at least 2 inches of crack were showing, okay? I remember one time I worked at this place and this girl, like her butt crack was always showing. And this was a long time ago. And her butt crack was always showing, and I would keep telling her to pull her pants up, and she's like, Zoe, white girls just have long butt cracks, okay? And I don't actually know if that's true. I haven't observed that many butt cracks of any race. Anyway, from that runway, waistlines got lower and lower and lower until you couldn't swing a dead cat without hitting a coin slot or a whale tail cresting under a tramp stamp of Chinese characters saying the wrong translation of Year of the Rooster. The models on the Loewe runway are purposefully having their hands shoved in these super high pockets. And listen, if he wanted the pants, if he wanted the pockets to be in a place where we are traditionally more used to having pockets, he could have made the slash pocket sit lower and her hand sit right on her hip bones, which is often the case with a lot of pants. But he purposefully made these pockets small and high so that the model would be forced to wear her hands up here to emphasize the super high waist, to emphasize the 75-25 proportion, to emphasize all of this. Okay? It really makes you pay attention to the silhouette. Sometimes, and this is often true in fashion, the introduction of a new concept often comes in its most raw, the rawest form, but not always the prettiest or most palatable form. That is often the job for the trend followers to do the next season, to make a high-waisted pant look cute, okay? But the introduction to concepts is often just pushing the envelope to get you to pay attention. But I often compare fashion runways to concept cars. Concept cars are also often too extreme for public consumption. You know how a lot of hoodies and sweatshirts, you have like a kangaroo pocket sitting on the bottom here like that? In this one, the kangaroo pocket is up here, okay? And so if she were to put her hands in those pockets, she would look like those girls in the blazers with those high pockets. And so again, even in a more subtle way, they are talking about how much you want to bet that this person was supposed to put their hands in these pockets, but they put them in these pockets by accident instead. Okay, I'm gonna guess. This looks more like what we're used to. This looks wearable and chic and sleek. If she had put her hands in these upper pockets, she would look awkward, but again, it would emphasize that 25-75 proportion that we've been looking at throughout this collection. In terms of garment construction, there's not a lot of ton here that needs, that shouts for a need for explanation, okay? There are a few things that I can't really dissect unless I had a clear 360 of what's going on. Like, I can tell that this tail of the coat is tucked in here, but I don't know if they're attached. I don't know if it's a different pattern. I don't know if it's just a normal other side of this coat that's just folded up and tucked in there. Like, I would have to actually see the garment in order to tell that, but those are the only things where the construction might not be self-explanatory. Like these skirts, it's just like an extra ruffle trailing down. There's really nothing special about that. I did a whole series on tiered and ruffled skirts in my Patreon pattern making class. That was fun, but it doesn't take much to add an extra ruffle. So in terms of construction, I want to talk about adaptive apparel specifically for people who use wheelchairs, because not all adaptive apparel is for wheelchair users. What is wrong with me today? Wheelchair users. Well, I said wheelchair 100 million times last summer because my husband had to use a wheelchair while he was relearning how to walk. And, he doesn't need to use one now, but you'd think that my mouth would be used to saying wheelchair. Oh my God. Some of you may be thinking, well, I don't know how to think for disabled people because I'm not disabled. Well, in this case, go sit in a chair. Okay? It's not that hard to figure out ways to have empathy for other people. Go sit in a chair and think about how you would have to live and do all the things that you do every day while sitting in the chair. And the number one thing I think of in terms of this collection is pockets. Okay, because these pockets are kind of in a weird place for your everyday person. But listen, go sit down in a chair, and if you are wearing regular jeans with pockets in their regular place, which is about here, okay, and tell me if you can access anything you put in your pockets when you are seated normally. In just a low back chair with armrests, tell me if you can get anything out of your pockets. Whereas this, you can't put anything huge like a phone or anything like that, but keys, sure. A small wallet, yeah, because the pockets are up here. And so you could still have a pocket bag bigger than your hand in there for certain things. Oftentimes, you have to, since you can't use those pockets, something like a cargo pocket placement is better for wheelchair users. By the way, these crookies are available at my store, shop.zoehung.com, or my Etsy store. And I made these because and I talk about this a lot because everyone is like, oh, if you only need flats to be a fashion designer, why do you draw on figures? Sometimes, depending on the pose that I'm using, sometimes it really helps the design process to keep visualizing how the garment is going to be used. This is why I like walking poses so much, because it makes me think about the movement of the clothing on the body and, how much, restriction you can put on legs. That's why I also like poses with the legs akimbo, because it makes you think like, even if you are in a pencil skirt, you still have to walk in it, right? And so when you are designing things for wheelchair users, it's good to picture them in a wheelchair. So you're literally thinking, where can I place the pockets? Okay. Where can I place these things where people in a wheelchair can have access to their things? So you can think about having a cargo pocket like this, but if you're seated like this, things are just going to fall out all the time. And so what if you did a cargo pocket or a cargo pocket placement where it was angled so that there was less of a chance that things would fall out? And putting a pocket mid-thigh angled like this, it doesn't have to be one of those bulky, huge cargo pockets. It can still be a welt pocket. It's just the angle of where it is and how it's angled so that things don't fall out. Those are the things that are helpful. Honestly, I was laughing when I was looking at this collection because I know I wanted to make this video, and, I love Loewe, but other people in the comments had asked me to review Loewe, and I was like, this whole collection was tailor-made to talk about, people who use wheelchairs, because honestly, look at this. Okay, I know that your everyday person isn't going to wear this anyway, regardless of what they need their arms for, because everybody needs to use their arms, okay? I got the concept. But obviously this needs, even if you are someone who uses a motorized wheelchair, you still need your arms. Even if you're not in a wheelchair, you still need your arms, you still need your hands, but it's the concept, okay? Work with me. These buttons though, okay, just side note on buttons and design in general, please take your time in choosing buttons for your designs, especially if they're a button that sits center front, because cheap looking buttons or the wrong buttons for a design can literally make or break all those hours of product development. Okay? It'll kill it. And I know you can be thinking, well, if they don't like the buttons, they can replace the buttons. How about you? When was the last time you replaced buttons on a jacket you didn't like? And if the jacket is leather, that's especially hard to do because leather doesn't heal and the whole patching okay, just pick a nice button. These knitting needles, they kind of sit right here, right where the body would fold in a seating position. So that's kind of fun. It's kind of dangerous, but it's kind of dangerous for anyone. So I don't know how this was made. This is one of those things where I would have to see it in person and see how it moves and functions before I could do a breakdown on how it was made. But all of this trailing down here, it's clearly some kind of rhinestone metal flowers, but if they were hinged in some way where this trailing part could come up and rest on the lap of the wearer when they were sitting, that could work. However, you can see how all of these flowers, these hard metal flowers, are wrapping around to the back. We don't have a back view, but if they were high up, and of course this also depends on the wheelchair. I've seen some with really low backs like this. The one my husband used, the back was kind of more up here. But if the flowers were only in the shoulder area, and then this part was smooth against the back, and this was hinged so that it could just roll up and sit on your lap instead of stabbing you in the leg, why not? Amazing. For me, this one, it's not the pockets, it's the length of the jacket, okay? Because I think what's best for wheelchair users, and this is me reading on stuff on the internet and talking to people who use wheelchairs, the best kinds of jackets are the ones that don't get tucked in under your butt or get scrunched around your butt when you sit down. Okay, they're short enough that they are ending here, in this range when you're seated. Okay, so you don't have to worry about anything under your butt. Of course, if you live somewhere really cold and you need a proper coat, it is better to have a coat that goes all the way under your butt. Okay, and let me tell you something, I'm a little sensory sensitive, okay? It's not a big deal, but if I were sitting in a coat for a long period of time and it ended right in the middle of my butt so that I felt that fold of the hem against my butt bones, no. And also, like, anytime you shift around, this might come up. This is an awkward length for people who are in a seated position a lot. Okay, it's either short enough that it's not getting in the way, or long enough and the coat is like on the lap and everything that it's covering more. It's not like shifting and being weird. I feel like this is fine. Like, it would sit kind of like that, I think, because this goes to the knee standing. I would say it would go like this, but it's a big knit sweater. It's soft, it's squishy, it's kind of cozy. The arms are a little too long to be wheeling a wheelchair effectively. Hopefully that can get folded up. Like, that's just waiting to get caught in a wheelchair, I think. Like, it would sit here and just dangle here, right? I don't know. I would be annoyed. But at the same time, it's a singular ruffle. Like, just throw it over your lap. I mean, if you really wanted this look to happen, I don't know. If you wanted this specific look, you would want the ruffle to be dangling to achieve the look. But then it would get in the way. And so you would have to kind of pick up the ruffle and put it on your lap when you're moving. I don't know. I'm a little back and forth on that. But I do, especially this one where it's heavier on the bottom, would get all caught up in this mess. Something like this is an evening look that is more contained, like tons of drapes, very Grecian goddess inspired, but they're all contained. So there are no trailing pieces that would get caught on any moving parts. This is a really interesting treatment of fringe. And like I said, the more I looked at this collection, the more I felt like it was such a perfect collection to discuss adaptive apparel, because it's all so much fringe, all the fringe. But it's contained, okay? Often, the fringe is loose, and that's fine, but this fringe is contained. It's looped back and stitched down so that it returns to the body and it's not flapping about. It is a little long though, okay? Like, this is one of those where I would love to see it in action before I could make a, decisive judgment. The idea of it to have the fringe for the look but contain it for function is good for literally anyone who's clumsy. Again, I am referring to myself again. So the sleeves, okay, again, a little long, but again, the fringe is contained, and also the hem, okay? Personally, I think that we could use like this tiering system, like maybe have a stitch around the knees so that it's contained, right at the knees again, so that the fringe is more contained in the legs and is not like, floating off and drooping and getting caught in moving parts. I might be overthinking the moving parts. If you use a wheelchair, let me know if I'm overthinking that. Honestly, like, as much as I look at fashion and talk about fashion with other people, when it comes to my husband, he lived in track pants the whole time he was using a wheelchair. But yeah, like, I think this dress is really lovely. Like, if it wasn't black, I would wear it. But maybe another row or two that kind of contained the longer loops might be better for function. Something that people don't discuss often enough with wheelchair users is not just how the clothes are when you're seated, but how to get in the pants. Because typically people are using wheelchairs because they have reduced mobility in their legs. And a lot of people think about, people with arthritis and how they would prefer magnets over buttons because of their hands and getting clothes on. But that is something you also have to take into consideration for other people and other disabilities. And so when I look at a lot of these pants, they are big enough that, yeah, you pull them on, but it's not like skinny jeans where you have to like tug and pull and, forget it if you're having a bloated day, okay? You kind of have to like struggle shimmy into skinny jeans. Don't come at me at whether or not skinny jeans are in style, okay? You wear what makes you feel good, all right? But these are full-legged trousers, so if you are able to do the pull-up motion, this is something that the width of the pants won't get in your way. This is really cool because if I am reading this correctly, you have a really wide pant that you pull through, and then you wrap the side flaps in the front. Honestly, it might just be that this is how the whole thing is constructed, and there's like a side zipper or a back zipper that is holding it in place. But go look up wrap pants and how wrap pants function, and how, I have a girlfriend who's really into fashion, and she's told me that wrap pants, in terms of getting things on, wrap pants are her ideal. So I like this idea of pulling it up and then just wrapping instead of trying to shimmy into smaller spaces. Having something this loose can be easier to put on for some people. I just want to touch on really quickly flies for everyone, okay? And how to calculate for how long a zipper needs to be, regardless of where your waistline is. Okay, so let's say your waistline is 30 inches, okay? And let's say your hips, the widest part of your hips, which is typically near crotch level, is 40 inches. Then you have 10 inches difference. And so in order for it to fit the waist right, but still open enough to get your hips through the pants, you need at least a 10-inch opening, which means that your fly needs to be a minimum of 5 inches. 5 on one side, 5 on the other, opens to 10 inches, right? Except it doesn't really open completely to 10 inches with sewing and angles and everything. And so maybe you want a 5.5-inch fly so that it opens to ideally 10 inches and wiggle room, okay? And that fly means the waistband and the zipper combined, because that's the whole opening, right? Whatever waistband this is, this looks about 2 inches, and then whatever the rest of this fly is, okay? And for a lot of people, they're even smaller up here, okay? So we're all the way up here, and then the hip. And the hip is roomy. It's not tight around her torso. So the minimum your fly can be is 5.5. However, does that always look right? No. Okay, sometimes when the zipper is too high, it just looks weird. Okay, you do need to consider a length that works in proportions to everything that looks good. However, a 5.5-inch fly is the absolute minimum you need to work with these proportions, if that's the proportion you have on these pants. This is just an example measurements. I picked nice round numbers to make the math really easy, but you need to look at your waistline and hip measurements, low hip measurements, and do the math yourself to make the zipper, the whole fly, the right length, and then give it another 1/2 inch. Okay, give it another 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch, maybe even a full inch if it looks good on the garment, so that people have a little room. People have room for a food baby, burrito coma, Thanksgiving Day, like, okay, give them a little room. All right, so those are my thoughts on Loewe Spring 2024. I would love it if you shared your thoughts on the collection also. And let me know if you like this kind of video, whether it's how do you make that for everyone, how do you make that for a specific demographic of people. Drop me your comments below. Share, subscribe, thumbs up, all the ways you show me love, and I will see you in the next video.